Hey everyone, how's everyone doing today? Today is transformation time. We will be having actually a couple come on today, and they're going to be sharing us their journey, their transformation journey. Awesome, here they are. Give me one sec. Let me just let them in. Well, actually, let's wait until they come in before I speak. There you go. Hey guys,
Hey,
Hey,
how's it
how are you
going?
guys doing?
good yourself?
Good. So I'm gonna let everyone know. So this is transformation time, and we're gonna be talking about Leonard and Sarah's personal development journey and mindset. So I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're honored for us to be on here.
Awesome. So let's start with just telling people a little bit about yourself, about you guys.
Yeah, well, we're real estate investors in the Ottawa region. Well, by trade, I'm a speech language pathologist, and Leonard works for the government, for the federal government. We started investing back in 2014, but like more seriously only last year. And through mentorship, coaching, watching videos and connecting with a lot of investors, we really saw a lot of growth within the last year, and now we're just kind of diving a little bit deeper into like what we really like, and that's multifamilies and also land development.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So, what would you say was what even got you thinking about real estate? Like, even you said in 2014 you started, like, what even made you think about it?
Well, 2014, to tell you the truth, it was kind of, I just stumbled on real estate investing. I just graduated, and my parents gave me a little bit of money for graduating university, and my brother had a condo, my cousin had a condo, so it was kind of like, well, I guess that's the thing to do, buy a condo. And that's where I got my foot in the door. And without really thinking, like, would it cash flow? Would it, is this a good investment? It was kind of like, okay, let's buy something that looks nice. And initially I was supposed to live in there, but I ended up renting it just because I actually couldn't afford living there. So after I realized that what the mortgage was going to be, condo fees, taxes, and I was like, wait a minute, I still have student loans and all of that. So I decided to rent it out so that I could cover all that. And I went and rented somewhere cheaper. I lived in a basement apartment after having bought my condo.
But that's good though. At least you got your foot in the door. And usually, I feel like all of us always do one sense or the other to say kind of make a mistake when we're first investing. Because I mean, I feel like something will always happen in your first investment because it's like that. Like you go and you're like, you don't think it through, right? Like I'm just gonna do it, and then you're like, this isn't really quite working out as what I thought it was, and then you're just like, okay, pivot, figure it out, like okay, I'm gonna do this instead.
And that's it. And I don't regret it at all because I'm selling it this year and I'm making substantially more than I put into it, right? So if I hadn't done that, even with, I guess it not cash flowing and everything, I wouldn't be sitting all this equity today. So it was a good move.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. I have similar situation happened with me. Like I bought a place. I lived in it for a little bit first, but then rented it out. And it was same thing. It wasn't cash flowing, but I don't know, in Ottawa, I don't know if it's the same, but like in the GTA, you never expect things to actually cash flow. Like the mentality here is that you're going for appreciation in the general public. Is that the same over there? Like, do people just think about appreciation, or do people actually think about uh like houses cash flowing when you rent it out?
Yeah, it's pretty similar here. Like people definitely go for appreciation, but at the same time, if you buy strategically and if you buy correctly, you can be in a position where you actually do cash flow. Now, mind you,
Mhm.
it's not substantial like in the secondary markets, but enough obviously just to just have a little something either in your pocket or to build your reserves.
Yeah, so the same was with me. I also wasn't cash flowing, but I kind of didn't care because I was just like, oh, okay, like it's gonna appreciate, so it doesn't matter. And same
Yeah.
thing, I sold mine, and it did so much more for me that I didn't even know it could.
Yes, absolutely.
So now when you transitioned into like, I would say now you're thinking of it more as a business, right? Like running your
Yes.
real estate as a business. So when you did that transition to getting a mentor and everything, how did that pivot go? And like, what made you think into getting into that and making that plunge, even to spend that much money, let's say to have a mentor?
To tell the truth, like initially we were definitely hesitant, right? Well, basically what happened is obviously COVID, you're sitting there and you have more time than you typically do. Well, at least for us, I know a lot of people, it wasn't their situation. They had less time with the kids at home and everything. But then we just started learning more, watching videos, and for me, it was kind of like, okay, after this video, I think I'll be ready. After this video, and it was only like 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to, wholesale because I was thinking of wholesaling, and which I did. Um, but then when I went to a mastermind, I kind of understood that there was so much more to learn, and although it was really expensive to get a coach, but we saw that like we were more thinking of the return on our time, and because we already felt that okay, well, yeah, we bought into like I bought in 2014, we bought together in 2018, but at the same time, like how much faster can we grow if we learn these things in 6 months rather than trial and error. So for us, it was just kind of changing a mindset to understanding that like this money seems like a lot, but the return on our time is going to be exponential. So we just took the dive, and we were on the same page about that. We talked about it, we prayed about it, and we decided that it was a good move, and it was absolutely a great move.
Yeah, and then so mainly we wanted to invest in ourselves, and we wanted to just put ourselves in situations where like we were like, I guess to put it bluntly, like the dumbest people in the room, as far as our general knowledge, and then also by modeling what somebody else has done before, then you avoid making the same mistakes that they made, and then you get to hopefully progress a little quicker. And so, but it was definitely a mindset shift because initially it's like, oh, are we really gonna pay other people, or are we really gonna put ourselves out there and be uncomfortable and having these conversations? But it turns out that at least in our case, we've had some great coaches and then some great people that are willing to volunteer their time to even mentor us.
That's awesome. Yeah, some really great points like that. Like that's also something that I thought was very important is like even for people, like I feel like letting the egos go down and
Yes.
accepting like, you know what, I want to be the dumbest person in the room because that just means you have so much that you can gain from the people around you. So that's
Exactly.
awesome that like it's really good because a lot of people I feel like our egos get in the way sometimes and we're just like, no, we need to be at their level. And whereas like you rather start at the bottom because it's just like all you can do is really go up because you're like you said, if you're the dumbest person in the room, you're just like, where's the else to go but up, right?
Mhm. And I think that's what it is because we actually just did um an episode on that. Like you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So as an example, let's say you get in a room and some people are doing like, let's say 10 flips a year, right? And you're doing 0 flips a year, and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to get into this. You might do 2 at the beginning, right? Like to you that might be an accomplishment, or maybe 3. But if you were the person that was further ahead in the room, then you might do 1 and feel good about yourself. You're like, well, I did more than everybody else. So you kind of you already feel like you've achieved something because you've achieved more than the people surrounding you. But if you surround yourself with people who are doing more, then you want to do more as well. And I think that's what it did for us. We always wanted to take action. We always wanted to do more because as much as you try not to compare yourself, but internally you do, you're like, I want to make this much money too,
Oh
right?
yeah, it's so true. You always compare yourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just human nature, right?
Yeah, and I think and like there's lots of people for some reason that see it in the negative sense, but it's like you can be competitive in a positive sense where it's like you're
Yeah.
bringing everyone else up with you, or like that, like, or like you were saying, like if everyone is at this high bar up here and we're just like starting from the beginning, it's always easier to actually, do bigger strides, I feel, because when you're starting down, whereas like if you guys are on the same level, like maybe the baby steps are more, but if like you with people that are going faster, I feel like your steps become bigger because you're just like, I need to get there faster. I need to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great points. And another point that you made about mindset. So how are your mindset shifts? Like, because you talked about basically that, almost like the poverty mindset where you're just like holding on to that money and not wanting to let go. And it's very hard to let it go because I think our parents, especially, I feel like tell us like save, save,
Same.
save. And so
Exactly.
to like let that money go, I feel like it's such a struggle.
Hmm. Um, Definitely at the beginning, we thought that way. We're like seeing this amount of money like leaving your bank accounts, right? And sometimes it can be frustrating when the return is not immediate,
Yeah.
like you see other people, it's kind of like, okay, they invest this much and they make double within 6 months or triple or quadruple or whatnot. Um, but I think the knowledge in itself was like you can't trade that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think through that coaching, it just made us understand money a little bit better, and also just not just what we got from the coaches, but like just the mentality that you need to keep learning, like reading certain
Yeah.
books on a daily basis, your habits on a daily basis. And I don't think you can put a price on that. The money will come as long as you're consistently taking action. It will come,
Mm-hmm.
whether you want to, like, it actually does. As much as some people are like it's lower than they want, but I don't think you can put a price on that knowledge about money and the habits and just being in the right room. And for us, when our mentality changed, we just sought coaching like left, right, and center, and we still continue to get coached.
Yeah, and then just to add on to what Sarah's saying, so she mentioned consistency. Um, Now the switch wasn't, at least for me, it wasn't instant. It was like a gradual switch, and by doing like daily activities and taking action on a daily basis, um, just small tasks as far as like reading 10 pages a day, or attending certain seminars or listening to certain YouTube pages. But the fact that you're doing it on a consistent basis, then eventually your mindset does switch to a position where like you're looking at certain opportunities differently, and you're looking at money differently, and then you're in a better position to make better decisions when it comes to your financial future.
Mm-hmm. How do you see, for example, like now, how do you see money differently than back then? Like, what are the shifts you felt that you see?
I think for me, it's mostly leverage. Like, I guess there's this negative connotation in our society when it comes to debt. So debt for most people is like, it's like, okay, like you want to do all you can to get out of debt, but most people that really got rich, like especially in this continent, they use it by leveraging themselves, buying assets that generate some type of revenue, some type of return, and then that's how they acquired their wealth, and it's all through debt, and it's all about being able to manage the debt, um, like correctly,
Mm-hmm.
and making the right moves. So at least for me, like that was definitely, and then also um, looking at things from a spread perspective. So say you borrow at this much, let's say at 2%, but then you're getting returns over here at 19%. Yes, you're borrowing, but there's still a spread of like 17% right there. So that's the one you should be focusing on, not the fact that, oh, I have to borrow this much at 2% and pay those interests, but like you're making 17. So it's like living within that spread is something that at least for me was like very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the debt one, I feel the same thing. That one is the hardest one to get over, right? I think
It
we
is,
are conditioned. Get rid of that debt as soon as possible.
as soon as possible. Yeah.
And I think,
And now it's like, how much can I get?
yes,
Exactly.
yeah, get me more debt.
Yeah.
And you know what? One thing that I realized is like it's still very ingrained in us because society looks at you differently. Like, for example, if you go to the bank and they see you have this debt on your credit card, for example, like, but we all know that once in a while you get this like 0% for 2 years, right? But the bank looks at you like, oh, well, you have like, you know, $20,000 or $40,000, whatever it is um on your credit card. But meanwhile, you're laughing because you're making 15% of that because you're lending it at, you know, a higher rate. But they look at you like, you don't know how to manage your money, therefore I don't want to lend you anymore. um
Yeah.
or maybe they're smart, maybe they know like, oh well, this person seems like they're doing well, like, so maybe I don't want them to do very well anymore, so I'm not gonna lend them anymore, right? They sometimes it depends on how you look at it. But so there's certainly that ego where the bank is like, oh no, I'm not going to lend you any more money because XYZ, you don't meet our criteria. And then like the inner you, like, oh man, if I had a job with, they would look at you differently. But that's what we're trying to step away from, right? The 9 to 5 and getting that job and use leverage, like Leonard said, other people's money, rather than the bank, right? Kind of understanding that like you don't need the bank anymore. I think that was a big switch for us.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah. Or even say, yeah, exactly. Actually, the credit card thing or even I noticed, for example, what you're saying, same thing. I have one of my credit cards fully maxed out because I'm taking advantage of that 0% interest. But I didn't realize that it really affects your TDS ratios because they don't charge it at like the two, let's say the 2% or something. They charge it at actually the full 20% and they
Right.
assume 20%. And I was just like, oh, I was like, you're just kind of like, why would you do that? I was like, look at my
Yeah.
deal. It says it's like only really like upfront fee of 2% or whatever, 1% or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it makes it more challenging, but at the same time, um, like we ran into that situation. They're like, oh, you know, you have a lot of debt. I'm like, but you don't understand. We bought a house with that, and it's like the house is cash flowing. So,
Yeah.
but it's a hit to your ego, but you definitely need to get over that because you know what you're doing, right? And
And
sometimes
it
when
brings out your creativity, I feel like. Like you
Yeah.
said, right now you're just like, okay, this is becoming an issue. And then either you go to your broker and you're like, what can I do to still make it happen? Or you're like, okay, now we go on the private side and we just make sure that it works with private money also. And if it's
Mhm.
like happens to work with a bank, awesome, like even better because you already know it works with private.
absolutely.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. And we ran into that situation where like, what's the worst case scenario? You know, at
Yeah.
what percentage do we need to borrow? Will the deal still make sense? And if it doesn't, that for us, it's like you let it go, right? Because you don't want to be in that worst case scenario and not be able to carry your deal. But if you can carry it and then you get approved, you know, with a B lender or whatnot or something lower,
Then
then
you're
you're
laughing.
laughing. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So what would you say, actually, before we go to that one, any other mindset types of shifts that you felt that you have gone through?
Um, Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like surrounding yourself with the right people is definitely one of them, and not being afraid to let go of certain friendships and in an organic way, right? Sometimes people would think you have to cut out, like you have to call your friend and be like, I can't hang out with you anymore. And that's not it at all. But I think just being okay, um, not constantly spending your time with the same people that maybe that sounds harsh, but it doesn't serve your future. Just having that mindset that that's fine. You know, that person maybe had a place in your life at one point, but if they're not in alignment with what you're trying to do, it's okay to distance yourself a little bit from that friendship. Um, it I was okay with it, but I just always felt bad, like maybe that the other person was thinking I was a bad person, that I wasn't hanging out anymore as much, etc. But I think eventually I became okay with it because I saw that like I did enjoy, you know, spending my time doing the things I used to do, being on the phone or gossiping or whatever it used to be. And I more enjoyed like reading a book, being quiet, meditating, making sure I have time for my family and exercising, all of these things that would serve my future better. So that mindset shift was took a little bit longer, but eventually I became okay with it, and I think it's so much better for your future.
Well, for me, it mostly had to do with there's two things. The first thing had to do with my sense of urgency before this whole shift. Not that I didn't have a sense of urgency, but it's definitely more delayed than it is right now. Now I'm more pressing to do certain things like right away, and I try not to leave things to the next day or the day after that. And then the next thing that at least was a shift for me, was really being able to. I just lost my train of thought just a second. It had to do with what was it? It was urgency. Oh yeah, and also just being okay with being uncomfortable. I'm in a position right now where I do a lot more networking than I used to do in the past, and you would never catch me on the phone, like ever. Like other than Sarah or my mom calling me, there's really not a lot of people blowing up my phone. And now and now my
Speak
phone
out, two people, right?
just two people and my sister every now and then, you know what I mean? But for the most part, my phone did not ring all that much, and now my phone rings a lot more. And I'm putting myself out there, talking to a bunch of people, whether it's realtors, lawyers, contractors, or whatnot, anyone that has to do with the whole real estate industry, and just having those conversations. Those conversations may not necessarily lead to something right away, but at least you're trying to foster and build those relationships, and then hopefully somewhere down the road you'll see the fruit of that labor.
Or even internally just growing more. Like you said, it was something that you never do. So it's like even just practicing, like, okay, like having conversations with people and being more social when it's not something that you're like super used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And being okay, like just getting to know people and providing value before before needing to raise capital, sort of thing. Like being okay being on the phone and letting them what you're up to, or providing some kind of counsel if they need it, and eventually comes back to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree. So Leonard's the introvert, it sounds like.
Well,
And then so Sarah, are you extrovert?
No, actually it's the opposite.
It's the opposite, actually.
You're an extrovert, but you just don't like the phone being off the hook. You like to be in the party. That's what it is, right?
I think he likes to be more in person.
Yeah, in person, face to face. But be on the phone, like I don't see. Yeah, like at least before I didn't see the value of like, I guess, cherishing and nurturing the relationship through a phone. Like I'd rather, like, if we get along, let's get together, let's grab some coffee, grab some food, go see a movie, whatever activity it may be. But like I'd rather that face-to-face interaction. Now I'm doing more. Now I'm doing some face-to-face. Obviously with COVID it was definitely a little less, but I find myself on the phone or on Zoom calls a lot more than usual.
Yeah, for me it was the Zoom calls, I have to say. But I did it for the fact of same thing. I find phone calls really impersonal, and even for myself, it just didn't feel like I could make a connection. And I found the beginning stages very hard to actually build those relationships. And I moved actually to like, and now, I mean, before I'd be like, oh my God, this person's gonna think I'm such a weirdo that I'm gonna be asking him to do a Zoom call. And because I'm an introvert, so I'm like, your mind's just going away on you and like saying like you're a super weirdo, and you're like asking, hey, video chat now? It's like not even like we're doing a video chat. I'm sorry, like it's happening. We're doing video chats. That's all that's happening, and people are like, oh, okay, and I don't even feel weird about it anymore. I'm like, it's happening, guys. Video chat.
Yeah, and I think like with COVID, that whole video thing became so normal that nobody thinks twice about it. I mean, people are still camera shy, I think, but at the same time, like everything is through Zoom. Signing with a lawyer is through Zoom. Like we don't really, well, at least me, I'm not really on the phone. It's like everything's through Zoom. It's like, oh, do you wanna do something? Through Zoom. Do you want to meet for coffee? Through Zoom. And it works out.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree. So what would you say for you guys were skills that you had in the past before getting into like real estate as a business that really you felt like you used those skills to actually propel your business forward to where it is now?
Do you say skills that we had in the past?
Yeah.
Mm, Len is very like a numbers guy.
Yeah.
That's really easy for him, like calculating deals. Like I can do it. It's just too tedious for me. I'm like, if you can do that, then that's fine. Um, I mean,
Well, for you, it's like your organizational
oh
skills.
yes, definitely very organized. I'm the one that basically makes sure that everything gets done in the right order. Like this
Mm-hmm.
needs to get done first, you know, and then we can move forward with this, that, and like for example, if we have a deal on the contract, making sure we have the insurance quote, making sure we know how the finance is going to work, making sure that we're raising capital, like making a list of all the things that need to be done before waiving conditions and after and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And even property management. In the past, when we bought properties, we didn't account for property management. So being organized in the sense that like when we need to serve the rent increase and all of that, just putting reminders. So definitely my organizational skills have helped with the business. And now we just make sure to use our strengths to their advantage. Like Leonard doesn't necessarily touch the paperwork. That's all me. And for him, he deals with more of the analyzing and well, I do raise capital as well, but he's like he said on the phone a lot more than I am. So just making sure that we know where we stand in terms of our roles, so that we don't like kind of like overstep,
Duplicate.
yeah, duplicate the work.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I think that's one of the good things I have to say of being a couple is like normally because couples are opposites, that they really actually help to, I feel like, clear both sides. You know, it's like if you don't have that skill, normally your other does, vice versa.
Hmm.
How did that happen for you guys? Was it very like organically, it just kind of like happened, or did you guys have to start like figuring out who does what?
No, for us it was very organic. Like we just kind of branched out to our separate roles and just kind of embraced it. And it's to a point right now where depending on what stage we are in the process of whether it's acquisition or whatnot, then it's like, okay, well, you know what, like this is your like I don't have to tell Sarah like, okay, well, you know what, this needs to be done, and automatically once it's like under her task list and it's done. Same thing for me, and then like I think we've really embraced those roles as well too, because I believe like it's one thing to want to start a business, but at the end of the day, that obviously there's still work to be done, and unless you're embracing those roles, then it kind of makes that task that much easier.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So that's nice. So it was, yeah, I feel like that normally happens, right? Like there's always at least I think one person that's the leader and kind of pushes, and the other one's like there to kind of make sure everything's put together or, like a whole, like, okay. I feel like at least that's with me and my husband. We work together, but it's funny. I push everything and I'm just kind of like, look, we got a house. And he's like, oh shit, let me figure out how the hell we're gonna make this house like look nicer or something.
Yeah, like you take care of the acquisition and he takes care of the flipping or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it works, like don't touch it. And at the beginning, I think I was trying to force certain things. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna be on the phone all the time and I'm gonna cold call sellers. And I was like, I hate it, you know?
Yeah, she hated that.
I was like, I was always tired. I felt like it was so draining for me because, like I mentioned, I am an introvert, and I guess the whole rejection from sellers, because we get a lot of those, really hit my ego. But then Leonard picked it up so smoothly, and I see him on the phone. He's like, "Okay, well, we didn't get this one. On to the next one." And I was like, "Okay, that's your role. That's you do."
It's like, okay, you clearly know how to handle this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I hear you. I'm the same actually. I can't say I like the receiving. I mean, I've never done it because more like I won't even allow like go through that. I won't let myself go through it because I knew it'd be like you. I wouldn't be able to handle like the people like crazy person. What are you doing talking to me on the phone? And I'd be like bawling my eyes out. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'd like totally take it to heart. It just wouldn't like go well at all.
Yeah. No, that's me all day.
Any other skills that you feel like you guys have had that helped your business grow?
I think that's like in a great scheme of things, I think that's what it is, like being organized and be able to just be that introvert to talk to sellers and raise capital. I think that's what really helped us. Definitely along the way, you figure out it's not necessarily you have a skill, it's just things that you need to get done. You just
Hmm.
get it done, right? But I think like just like anything, making sure you have your to-do list. Um, you know what needs to be done for the deal to make to work, and you just do it, whether you have the skill or not, whatever that means for the actual task. If that's your task, you just get it done.
Yeah, and I think also that something that works in our favor is the fact that we're very open people. We're very transparent. I believe we have pretty good interpersonal skills, and people just tend to either relate to us or gravitate to us, and like we can create that connection with sellers or with any other person that's part of the whole real estate equation. Yeah, and I think the fact that well, as you know, we like we have our YouTube page, so like we're very open to talk about and to share our story and our journey. Um, I don't think that comes natural for most people. So it's definitely one of those skills that we have that we definitely we definitely like cultivated and um, I think like I know for us it's something that's definitely part of our I guess part of our DNA to want to be successful in this business.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, being open and sharing your life is very hard. Like a lot of people, I would even say the same thing with myself. I'm very much a private person. And I would say that would be very hard to open up. Let's say and just share everything. I don't know. That's great that you guys can do that because that is a very scary thing. Probably again, maybe through family that you're just used to like always having to be private or something, or don't share your business. Who knows? Like, it just gets so ingrained in you. So that's nice that you guys can actually open up because it's very true. Like everything that, let's say we all go through, everyone else going through, and it's just like, why not share? Because
Exactly.
that will actually, help or even like how it happens in real estate, right? I may have a problem in real estate that I've never experienced before, but you share the problem and then you may have a solution. Oh, I've gone through that, or
Right.
I've seen this person, talked to this person, and then you just realize, oh, I'm not the only one that's having this issue, and you get so many things solved that way. So I think,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's great.
Exactly. Like you hit it right, like the nail around the head. It's like you find out that not only are we all going through the same thing, but like it's like we can relate to each other. Like
Hmm.
having that commonality where it's like we've been through this, maybe not necessarily the same way, but in the like I guess in the general sense, we've all gone through some similar stuff, whether it be positive or negative, right? So it's like being able to relate to people on that level and being able to be open and to also be vulnerable and allowing to have those in some cases difficult conversations. I think it's been a benefit to us for sure.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. That's very great. That's great that you guys have that. I will have to work on that. Those things scare me to death. But baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah,
Absolutely, exactly.
it's easier than we think.
Is it?
It
I guess
is.
I
what,
It
think so.
is.
I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
so.
Because like everybody, I think like the feedback that you get when you do open up is so positive because it's other people will say, hey, I've gone through the same thing and like, thank you for sharing because I was going to make the same mistake and it avoided me to make that mistake. And so it just kind of gives you that boost to continue doing it. Because like literally everybody is making mistakes out there. If you're
Everybody.
if you're doing real estate, you're making more mistakes than, wins, but like most of the times all you see is the
Is the
wins,
wins. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And we don't want that. We don't want people to think that like, Sarah and Leonard are always winning or Diana's always winning. That's not the case at all. And I think it's very discouraging when all you see is like beautiful flips and nothing ever went wrong or like I perfect burr. And it's like, no, I did get asbestos or I did see mold and then we had to pivot or whatever it is. And I think people need to see that. And I think it'll help them um, just feel normal because it is part of the business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and it is true. Let's say sharing your problems and stuff, it just helps not only, and I feel like not only it helps the person, like if you're sharing like, oh, I've had this problem, But I feel like also when you share that you've had the problem and you talk about it, you also, I feel like, gain actually something from
yourself too, even though you're helping that person. Because sometimes I feel like when you talk it out, also, you kind of reflect back on your problem and like, oh, I could have actually done it this way or changed this or
Exactly.
thought about it in this way.
Hmm.
Like in a, like change it up. Maybe if it happens again, I'm gonna actually approach it differently, something like that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, like as much as like knowing people are doing their best to avoid.
Oh, I don't know why I can't hear you guys. Sorry, one sec. What happened? Can't hear you guys
Oh,
anymore.
Oh,
your volume.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us?
yeah, we can hear you.
Very faintly. Hold on. Let me see what happened over here. Why can't I hear you guys?
Can you hear us now? Yeah, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I don't know if I froze. It kind of disappeared for some reason. Now I
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
good.
Sorry about that. Sorry, what was the last thing you were saying? It was so soft I couldn't hear.
I don't know. Honestly, I forgot. Oh,
Um,
just
But
in
yeah,
general, like it's okay to share your mistakes because everybody else is looking for, is anybody else making mistakes out there? Because I'm also making some, and it's just encourage you to keep going when you see that like not everybody's road is perfect.
exactly. And then as much as people are trying to avoid to make mistakes, but you learn so much more from those mistakes. If you can take the
mhm.
time to take yourself out of the situation, take a step back and evaluate it, then there's a lot of like the valuable nuggets that you can get from those mistakes.
Totally. And exactly, actually, a good point that you said is like not thinking people are perfect because
Hmm.
I feel like that is so true. A lot of us, especially let's say a lot of us that are actually real estate investors and now people that aren't real estate investors, they start thinking, oh, you're special. That's why you are able to do it. And it's like, no, that's not the truth. And it's like so much hard work. And like you said, the amount of mistakes that happen, especially that we're treating it as a business and we're running a lot faster than let's say any like other people, let's say just people that do it as a hobby or buying a house maybe once every 5 years. We're like buying houses maybe every other month or something. Like we're going so much faster that we're making so many mistakes because it's just like go go go. We're learning so much on the fly, and it's exhausting.
Yeah,
But
it
Yes,
is.
it's
it is.
It's a 3 hour nap today. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
and but then it's funny because some people say like, oh, like it's just because you're like this or you're that way, and it's like has nothing to do with that. And actually, that was one of the reasons why I started this show, Re Behind the Scenes, because the main part of it is actually the problems that are encountered on a deal and a project that people are going through. Because it's like we'll always encounter problems. That's like
Always.
it's gonna happen. There's no even saying like you'll ever have a perfect deal. I
Hmm.
think when you say that, I think it's you're so used to the problems that you have solutions and they just come quicker,
You
you
know what?
know?
I'm glad you said that because I know for us, like we had various situations where maybe in the past we'd be so quick to give up, where now it's like, okay, like this is a problem. How do we find a solution to solve it? And then we try and get creative. We try to lean on our network. We try to lean on either our mentors or coaches for leverage and for counsel. So that, as I guess going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, as far as a mindset shift, that's also been like a shift for us. Like I know for me in particular, where it's like, okay, there's this situation. Okay, that's fine. It's not ideal. Yeah, it's a problem, but at the end of the day, we have to deal with it. And then, what is the solution? Let's try to find a solution because, as you know, a lot of times especially when it comes to like, say you're purchasing something that's distressed, um, you are inheriting someone's problem that that person cannot solve. So if you can find a way to be creative and actually solve it, then that's where you create that spread and you're able to either build something or get a profit out of this transaction.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, that's definitely something That is very true. We've become, I feel like that creative or very like it's okay to solve problems. Like I think like that before, it's like we think, oh, this problem came up, I'm just not even gonna deal with it.
Exactly.
Now it's like this is not even a negotiable. It's like we're figuring out this problem, we're getting it done, doesn't matter. And that's what I think I would say really is the difference between like a person that doesn't have a business to a person that has a business. If you want to start a business, your mind just has to change. You're
Yeah.
solving whatever problem is coming up your way. Doesn't matter what it is getting solved because if you don't solve it, that's probably how also, or that is how businesses also fail, right? If you don't
Exactly.
continue solving the problems moving forward, what happens? You stay stagnant, your business fails. And it's
Mhm.
just like, what is the next problem? What is the next problem? And it's what they always say, right? The problems only become bigger. You have bigger problems. The ones that you've already learned, they become like nothing to you after a while.
It's so true. Like as much as that's cliche, it's so true.
Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting because yeah, that was yeah, I guess yeah, skill such I guess mindset shift. You're right, that is a mindset shift. I never thought of that one, but that's true. That is a mindset
Oh,
shift.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, actually that's never been talked about on the show. First one, that's great. First new one, guys. And I think again, that's why it's so good to talk to different people, right? Because we all have different mentalities, different ways of thinking of things. And sometimes we don't realize even certain some of the mind shifts that we do until someone like that you say, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. That is a mindset shift where it's just like you would have never thought of it. Now it just kind of like puts it in the forefront for you.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. Like I know we had this wholesale deal that was like complicated to say the least. And at one point we're um, uh, the person's lender was going to back out, so the individual had to get a new lender. The person also had to get a new lawyer. And the whole time we're like, okay, like are we going to be able to actually close on this? And then to a point where like, are we going to be the one that's going to help this person and lend them some money just to make this work? So like we're literally going through all the scenarios. Now, luckily everything worked out, but initially, if we would have gone into that deal with our past mindset, we would have been just like either panicking or just be willing to give up right away. Instead,
The deal probably would have been dead. It wouldn't even have gone through.
exactly,
Exactly.
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 But instead, we tried to
Mhm.
we were analyzing and evaluating the situation. We came up with a couple of possible solutions, and then possible options, and then at the end, everything did work out. But it's just like just kind of like having that mindset, and also having going through that exercise of trying to solve those problems was at least in that case was very beneficial.
Hmm. And I think that's also a great point. Even just talking about how it was someone else that was buying it. Like you could have been like, oh well, whatever, your fault, you can't buy it, that's it, right?
Exactly.
But the other good thing is like in the realm, at least in our community, we're very much about like helping each other out. Like, oh, okay, you can't do it, let's figure out like same thing. There's you was just like, okay, let me see if I can figure out something that can help your situation so that you can still move forward and you're just figuring out all the different options and you just start really working together as a community and not really giving up like, oh, okay, you can't you because to be honest, in that situation, you guys like nothing would have probably happened to you guys. You guys would have been probably okay either way, right? It was
Yeah.
more the other person. But it's like, but also you don't want them to obviously fail because you want like everyone to win, right? And I
Exactly.
feel like that's such an important thing, at least in our community, right? It's like now we think more about like we want everyone to be always winning.
Yeah. And I mean, I know some people think that wholesalers are these people that make so much money flipping this one paper, but the truth of the matter is we're helping a lot of sellers who don't want to sell the traditional way. And this, like, one of the reasons we really try to make it work and really found all the solutions we could is because that seller was really stranded. They needed that money. They had already bought another house, waived conditions, and they needed to close on their house that they were wholesaling it to us, or selling to us, so that they could close on the other house. So they were literally, they needed that money, right? So we couldn't just be like, well, you can't close on it, your problem. What about the seller that we created a relationship with and they
Mhm.
trust us and they were like begging us to quote to make sure it closed, right? And we're like, we're
Mhm.
doing everything we can. And honestly, I think we were ready to take the deal if we had to. because that's how bad we wanted to help this guy, you know, sell his house. And eventually we made money, and, you know, the other person made money, and the seller got, they won, win all the way. But having the old mentality, we could have been like, oh, sorry, like we can't help you anymore. We didn't find a buyer. That would have been okay, right? But at the same time, we would have felt horrible not being able to help this person.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's so interesting how just small changes like not giving up, you know. I think for normal people, giving up is so easy, whereas like again, when you're getting into like building the business and getting things moving and building a reputation for yourself, like you want to make sure everything is always a win. Obviously, it will not always be a win, but at least the effort shows there too, right? That it's like you're wanting to make sure that, you know, at least being creative enough to try to find every possible solution and knowing that you tried everything that you could, you know, to make sure it happens. And usually like that, when you try everything, something comes up and it gets solved.
Right, exactly.
So with all this that you guys have done and learned so far, what are like some skills that you've now started realizing you need to learn to further yourselves in your careers and in your businesses?
Well, I wish I had some kind of renovation skills, tell the truth. It'd make flips a lot cheaper. Well, I think the skills that we wish we had or want to have,
Not
or
had, the ones that you want to learn, the ones that you want to learn.
oh, one thing that we want to learn.
Yeah, skills that you want to learn to continue progressing your business.
For me, it continues to be more of the business side of things. I don't have a specific skill, but like I guess like how to hire right, how to delegate which task first, what is my highest and best use of time so that I know which ones to delegate. Creating systems, I think that's like I know how to do that, but understanding that you need to take time to do that so that you can progress, right? Because we're still working in the business sometimes that we don't have time to work on the business, as we say. So really having that business mindset, like, no, I'm not the sole person running this. Me and Leonard aren't. Really hiring people to do certain things for us so that we can go and get more deals, acquisition, and the networking part, as opposed to doing all the tedious stuff. I think that's really what the next thing that we're wanting to learn.
Exactly. Like I know for me, it'll definitely come down to recruiting, find the right people that can help us out, that we can partner with or work with in order to make our business smoother, and also just being able to take our fundraising to the next level. Like eventually, it'd be great.
Raising capital.
Yeah, so raising capital. It'd be great to be able to raise up to like over $1 million and to fully fund a deal where you wouldn't even have to get financing from a bank, where you can just have all this funding, whether it's registered or just straight cash, and just putting that and like creating your own mortgage with that funding, being able to provide a decent return for your investors. Like that's definitely something that well, we're on our way of doing that, but definitely something that I definitely want to get.
Like growing and making it bigger.
Yeah, just getting bigger.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like we should make that a challenge for all of us, right? I feel like we're starting to all get, it's funny you say $1 million. I'm also now in that mentality of like, I need to raise $1 million. Like this is happening this year. Like the next year is like $1 million for sure. I'm gonna for sure raise it. I feel like a lot of us are starting to get into that boat.
and like I think it's a combination of a couple of things. Like at least for me, like the fact that like I mentioned before, like obviously like it's all about those baby steps, right? So I've been networking with people for over a year now, but just recently we've been able to raise a certain amount of money. So like we're able to raise close to $250,000. So I was like, okay, you know what? That's a significant amount of money.
Mind you, in 2 days.
In 2 days,
right? Like I feel like the number it's more like how fast we were able to do it.
Fair enough. Yes, actually, that's a very good point. But also, if we can do that in just a couple of days, imagine if we can do 4 times as much or 3 or like 6 times as much, and maybe even less time. Like that, there's so much power in that to be able to raise capital, and then also and then to raise it exponentially as far as like within a short amount of time. That I think is such a valuable skill.
Yeah, 100%. And at least like that, like I don't know, I think we're always told like money doesn't grow on trees, and there's no abundance in money. And it's really funny because I'm like now I'm like I feel like money does grow on trees. What are you talking about?
I was gonna say.
The government prints it out like candy. Like, here, go take all the money you want, and it's just
Exactly.
like who's grabbing it? You know, it's like now we're just like, I'm gonna have some of that. Thank you very much.
You're absolutely right. And it's like, who was it that was saying, I think Grant Cardone is like, what he asks is, who has my money, right? Who's willing to, so it's just finding the right people because the money's there.
Exactly.
Yeah, the money's there, and yeah, it's just the confidence. And it's funny, I don't know if you guys also had this, but you know, you feel like, for example, like $1,000 is a lot. Like now for me, like 100K is not very much anymore. Like to me, I'm just like, whatever. Like I need, like for me to, yeah, like let's say 100K. Like I'm now worrying, okay, maybe, like you know what I mean. Like for me, I used to be like, oh, like $1,000, that's a lot of money. Even though I had, like in the sense of like spending it and putting it out. Now I'm just like, now with houses, you're like 100K is like a normal number now, and you're probably dishing out a couple 100Ks, you know, a few 100Ks.
Yeah, and now it's the point you make 10K and you don't even flinch. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually, you know, it's funny that I was doing someone with one of the guys I'm teamed up with, and then like training him to help me more in the wholesaling side. And it was really funny because same thing, like I was just like, you think, would you be okay with like just making 10K on this one? Because I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna make anything more around in that. And he's like, Diana, 10K is a lot of money. And I'm just so used to 10K not being a lot, but obviously to people that are new, 10K is like a good income, like a good amount to receive at once. And it was like the funniest thing ever because like that, my mind is on bigger numbers. And to me, I was just like, oh man, 10K, like, okay, I guess like we can work with that, right? Like I was like those numbers don't like faze me anymore. Where he was just like, I am okay with making 10K. And when he said that, I was like, oh, was that a stupid question?
I mean, I don't think it is. I think it's just where we're going, and there's no shame in that. It's just, it shows your growth. That's all it is.
Yeah, and like that, it's just like that because now I'm working with bigger numbers. So like that is, it's just like 10K seems like such a small amount. Whereas like I just think back at the beginning where you think like $1,000, you know, like investing $1,000 in your education. Oh my God, like that's such a like a lot of money. Now it's just like, no, it's like that's nothing.
It's just pitching it out there, right?
So what do you guys, so final and last question for you guys. So what do you guys see yourself in the next like 5 to 10 years, like personal or like business or together? Like what are you guys seeing yourselves doing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, personal, definitely a lot more, like less working in the business, a lot more traveling, and maybe running the business from afar, from abroad. I think from a real estate point of view, we're really gearing towards land development, and that's, we have a deal right now that we're closing on next week, and it's going to be developing like a house, and you know, making the design and all of that and selling that to a builder. So we're really enjoying that process and learning more about that, especially in Ottawa, because there's a lot of growth coming into Ottawa. So I think we're going to be gearing towards that, but we do understand that we also need to build our wealth. So multifamily properties is always going to be something that we're looking for.
But large multifamily.
Yes,
we're talking about like 15, 20, 30 units. And as far as these land development deals, like we're looking to do like at least 3 a year, where we can get some significant returns, and so and this I guess zoning in on creating better deals and better opportunities for our investors. Just striving just to constantly improve.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. It was so awesome to have you guys on and to hear you guys' stories and experiences.
Well, thank you for having us. This was great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, guys, for being on, and we'll see everyone at the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Have a good night. Bye.